All right. Hi, everyone. Hello. All right. We are super, super excited for tonight's fantastic workshop. We have 5 singers for everyone to hear today. I'm just going to give a quick overview of how Zoom works, which is going to be very important today because today is very interactive. So I'm just going to type hello in the chat right now. As you know, every week we're going to have a Q&A. The 3 questions from last week have been carried over to this week. And so if you have any questions over the course of tonight, please put them in the chat, and I will put those into our documents so we make sure they get answered at the end during our Q&A. We just ask that you don't put anything in the chat that are about observations or anything like that, just questions. Throughout the course of the evening, Jeannie's going to ask people what they think or their ideas about sounds that we're hearing from the singers. And in order to participate in that, you're going to click on the participants button at the bottom of the screen. And then you're going to see, once you've clicked that participants button, there's going to be a raise hand feature. So if you click raise hand, it will put your hand up, and then we will unmute you in the order that the hand raises come through. Also, if you're currently in gallery view, which means you're seeing a whole bunch of small faces on the screen, you're going to want to switch that over to speaker view. So up in the top right of the screen, you're going to see a button that says view, and you're going to click where it says view, and then switch it from gallery view to speaker view. And once you click speaker, you'll see my face big on the screen, or Jeannie, or whoever's singing through the night. But that's all I have to say. I'm going to pass it on to Jeannie.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Oh, you're wearing my favorite shirt. I love that shirt. So hi. Love to have you all here. I get so excited. Tonight is about what do you hear, digging into your ears, and then what do you do with that? Now, everybody hears through their own filter of their life experience, their own singing, and the singing that they've heard, and or the speaking voice, because we do have some speaking voice experts with us here tonight for November, and so they're going to listen in a different way. But if we are listening to human beings who have voices, there's only so many things. We don't sound like an animal, generally speaking. Nobody has a neck as long as a giraffe, or as big as an elephant, or as small as a little bitty bird. So within the range of what human beings are, from tiny to big, that has a limit. You know, we don't yet have 8-foot tall human beings unless they have an illness. And we do have very small human beings, but they're going to sound more childlike. If you're going to sing and teach, you have to understand what you hear, but also how you hear it, the context from which you make a decision about it. And most of us hear from a subjective place. And in somatic voice work, we try to learn to listen to the sound objectively first, which means you listen to what the voice is doing and what kind of a voice it is. So if you think of an instrument, you think violin. We all kind of have an idea what a violin sounds like. Then you might have somebody who's playing bluegrass on it, or somebody who's playing Mozart on it. So the violin remains the same, but what the person who's playing is doing is different. So you are a violin or a cello or an oboe, maybe even a bass. That is your anatomy. Okay? Now within that, you have the variability of pitch change and of mobility in the system for vowels and vocal qualities. So a cellist can make the cello do all kinds of cool things, but it's never going to sound like a French horn. So there are limits, and you want to know what they are so that you don't start criticizing something which is basically a function of that person's anatomy. They can't do anything about that. So you want to start to learn to hear the behavior. What is the voice doing? And then you also have to learn, what is this voice? That's a little trickier, especially in commercial music, because there's not as much emphasis on it in commercial music. In classical music, there's quite a bit of emphasis on it. So you're a lyric voice, you're a dramatic voice, you're someplace in the middle. That matters in classical repertoire. In jazz, not so much. Country music, folk music, probably not so much. But in some of the styles, the vocal quality matters. So that means that you have to understand vocal production or vocal function. I'm using them interchangeably. Because if you make an operatic sound in a piece of music that was meant to be sung like a country song, it's going to just sound wrong, even if people don't understand why. Now, if we lived in a universe where anybody could sing any kind of music in any old which way, and everybody would be thrilled with that, then this whole evening, and probably the courses in general, wouldn't be necessary. But that's not exactly where we are. And things, I think, are more flexible than they used to be, but there are still assumptions that if you say, I sing X kind of music, that is meaningful, especially to other people who sing that music. In your handout, I tried to briefly go over vocal function in a super simplified manner, mostly for people who are coming to this work without that background. So that you have some knowledge and that you would be inclined to go out and find more. This is not a comprehensive voice science class. Also, there's a mistake on the second page of your handout. That's my mistake. In the third paragraph down, it starts with the more astute your ears. The second line down, I wrote and when I should have written as. So that second sentence in that paragraph should read, the more accurate your mental description of what you hear is, the more it will be meaningful to you as information you can use in your singing or a lesson. And then the more you learn to observe movements and response in the entire body, from head to toe, the more you will be able to help the entire system integrate into a cohesive whole. You want to seek always to delve as deeply as possible into every vocal sound until you know what you hear. And if somebody's making a sound you don't understand, try to make it yourself. Copy it. See, what do I have to do to make that sound? Because it's likely that the other person is having to do something similar, maybe not exactly the same. There's more than one way to make a vowel sound brighter. There's more than one way to make a vowel sound darker. And that's why people who teach in a set way, you always darken the sound this way. Yeah, that's not true. There are many ways to change the quality of the sound. Now, anytime we have to describe sound with words, we're at a loss. It's not great. You know, you can describe a thing with words, but sound is not a thing. Sound is an experience that we get through our ears. And then the visual is a little more definable because that's, at least on the outside, we can see the outside. But there's a large component of behavior inside the throat and mouth that matters to what we hear outside in the room that we can't see, and we don't feel a whole lot, although it becomes more feelable as we progress as singers. And so when we're talking about the quality of the sound, whether it's clear or breathy or nasal or noisy, or whether it's a warm sound or a bright sound, what do we mean? What are we talking about? So to some extent, you get this by just being a singer and hanging out with singing and other singers and people who teach singing. And the teaching of the different approaches is called pedagogy. It's a way of, the agis are the study of something. And so we are always trying to evolve our pedagogy so that it is more inclusive and broader and deeper. And then the context of how you hear is through your own brain. And that has, as you can imagine, all kinds, it's fraught with all kinds of stuff. I asked you to listen to yourself or to think about how you sound if you sound at your best, and then describe what you hear, what you feel, what you experience, and also to do that with someone else. Now, those of you that don't sing, someone else counts. You can hear it in someone else too. But most of you do sing, and so I'm looking to hear from 3 people who will share what you wrote. If you did the homework, what did you experience when you thought about your singing, when it was the way you want it to be? How did you describe it? What words, what images, what ideas came to you in trying to put that into your own words? And this is not a contest where you get a grade. You know, you wrote the right answer, you get an A. It's whatever you wrote is what counts. I don't care what it is. I just want to know what you made of the assignment, because everybody will have made their own answers. Yeah, there's no correct way. So if you think you would like to make some comments, brief comments, will you put yourself in the chat area?
Oh, so click the participants and then raise hand.
Right.
All right, Marianne Kruger, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm always very critical of myself, which I'm sure all singers are. So when I was reading your questions, when you're singing or have in the past as well as you can, what does it feel like as sensation and emotion? As an emotion, it's very, very freeing. That's my favorite part of singing, I think, is the emotion. As a sensation, I found that it's harder than it should be to sing. It doesn't come as easy to me anymore. How did it sound as I was singing? What did I think of? My images were the lyrics and communicating the song. The sound is good in my head. It's not so good when I replay it. But then again, that's the head stuff going on. And the song that I was singing was a contemporary Christian love song, and I was doing a recording for my husband for our anniversary.
Okay. Marianne, when you say good, what does good mean to you?
Okay. So in this particular instance, I felt like I was taking too many liberties in scooping up to the pitch, and that my pitch was not good. I felt that my pitch was not accurate in a lot of places, and it was very frustrating to me to listen to.
Okay. So that your particular take on good was that intonation issues. Was
Correct.
there any other thing that made you not happy with it?
As far as the fact that it felt like, now I'm not sure whether it sounded like it, but it felt like to me it was harder than usual to sing. And that seems to have come with age.
Okay. So it wasn't as easy as it once was in comparison.
Correct.
To, another time. So both of those things are things that can be worked on and corrected. Do you know that?
Yes.
Okay. So then the next question is, would you be willing to work on it to correct it?
Yes, I really would be. I think I spend more time working on other voices than I do on my own voice.
Well, that's a common
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Plus teachers. Okay, so it's really important to see for yourself, and I know this represents many other people, that the evaluation of yourself saying, intonation's not so good, or, it's harder than it used to be. Those things are useful because those are pretty objective evaluations. And then you have to be willing to say, okay, I'm not going to do this until I get the intonation better, and I'm going to work on it. Or, gee, this is harder. Now, why is it harder? So functionally, aside from the fact that you're older, I understand that.
Yes.
What can you do to make it not quite so difficult?
Probably work on it more.
Right.
Just spend more time on my own voice, doing warm-ups of my own voice. Singing has always been very freeing and very wonderful to me. So I can sing along in the car, I can sing along to CD, Oh, that's old, isn't it? I can sing along to an MP3. Um,
Yes. Okay.
and feel really good about it. It's when I have to listen to myself that I realize that it needs work.
Okay. So the discipline from a functional standpoint, which is where hopefully the rest of tonight's going to go, is about evaluating harder and then saying to yourself, okay, what can I do to make it easier? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, are you vocalizing enough in head register? Because head register is about flexibility and ease and mobility. And so how do we get that to happen? Well, you have to just do your woo, and then you have to do over and over and over and over and over and over, even if when you go to your music, that isn't the sound you're going to make.
Okay.
Because the purpose of that whole realm of things is so that when you go to sing whatever you're going to sing, it doesn't feel as hard. And that's why it's important to determine, once you get the idea that, gee, this is harder than it used to be, what about it is the difficulty? Functionally speaking, can I nail that down? Because then you can go work on it. I got some tickling in my throat. Hold on a sec. Now, if you know how to get at head register, so you, and hopefully as a somatic voice work person, this is something we're learning, we're teaching each other, then like, which exercises do you do and how long do you do them for? And if they're not that good, does it mean you should keep doing them? Those are all legitimate questions, and sometimes that's what you need another person for. You need the other person to say, I don't know, I think you could do that again, do it again. And, maybe you got to do it 4 or 5 times before it starts to feel like, oh, okay, it's getting better. Or maybe somebody would listen and say, well, I think that's pretty good. And then you might say, really? I don't know, I thought it wasn't that good. No, I think it's okay. So you have some give and take from somebody else to get to read the response better. Now, I'm forgive me for using myself all the time as an example, but I'm the most obvious choice. Because I have the paresis on the left side, I had to learn to sing as best I could, even though I really disliked how it felt and sometimes also how it sounded. And I would be singing thinking, this sounds terrible. But other people would say, no, it doesn't sound like there's anything wrong. So then there's an element of having to readjust your image of yourself as a vocalist. Okay? So if we carry the same image of ourselves, I want to look in the mirror and I want to see that I have my hair teased up in a bubble and, I have on the middle mini skirt. If I'm still walking around like that at 71, people are going to go, oh boy. So along the lines of our lives, you might have to make some adjustment and maybe say, I guess I'm not going to go that high. Or maybe I'm not going to sing for that long or that loud. But you don't know that until you've done a considerable amount of work. You might surprise yourself and end up singing just as well as you ever did, but only if you work on it.
Yes.
Okay? So this is the idea that I want to convey to everybody. And even though it might have been different before, you can only be now. How is it now? And then how can you address those things now? And that's the point of the idea of thinking functionally. So that you eventually can get back to a place where it feels that nice, emotional, juicy place where you want to live. I don't really think that. I'm going to stick my neck out there. You don't look old enough to me to be singing with a lot of trouble. So I think it's really just a question of giving yourself permission to say, I'm just as important as my students, and I'm going to put in the time. You're worth it.
And you made a good point, though. I have not taken a lesson from anyone else in a couple of years, and that always does make me more accountable.
Yes.
And makes me work on things. So,
yes.
Good point.
Yeah, and I mean everybody. You're very representative of all of us, and maybe it's not exactly the same situation for the younger people, but they have other issues. They have different issues. So thank you for sharing about that. That was a great example of the homework, and
Thank you.
I want to see Billy if we have somebody else.
Yeah, Alexandra, I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Um, so when I did the homework, when I was singing, and I think I was singing pretty well when I was observing, it feels like I have access and open communication to every part of my body. Um, that there is a sense of flow in the body. Um, and as emotion, it's almost like the emotions go to the subconscious level. So they're no longer right on the surface. That they're there, but um, yeah. Uh, and what it sounded like as I was singing, I listened back to the recording, and I liked most of the sounds I was making, and in real time I corrected a couple things, and so there was a sparkle or like a shimmer to the sound, and when I was way up above the staff, it was more like a gold or a silvery gold, and then when I was in the middle, around below or in the staff, it was more almost like a burgundy with a sparkle. When things were working really well. When they were working less well, the sparkle kind of went away and the vibrancy of the color decreased as well.
Okay.
And I was singing, it was a new composition, a classical piece for solo a cappella voice.
Okay. So that's what's interesting about your observation is that the sound was when you described the sound, you described it as color.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting. Do you know that you do that?
I do. I do. I'm also I do photography and graphic design, so sometimes the best words that I have come from the visual side. So I don't. I mean, I guess it could be synesthesia. I don't think it quite is.
No.
But I think it's just the best words that I have to describe the sounds.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's really good to notice that you're describing sound with the other information you have, which is largely visual. And so then I would say to you, well, can you describe the sound as sound? Sparkly is not exactly, I mean, I guess you could say it has a sound. If it was a firework, it would have a sound.
Sure.
But what other kinds of words would you come up with if there were auditory words?
I think it could be about describing the complexity of the harmonic sequence that I'm hearing.
Okay.
So I think that when everything is working and is lined up, I have a fuller complement of the harmonics, including, say, the singer's formant and some of the higher frequencies.
Okay. Now, you know I'm going to ask you in somatic voice work, what's the register quality?
I think when I was way up high, head voice.
Okay.
I feel
What
like
about
it's
the
a trick question.
No, it's not a trick question.
I
It's a
know, I
straightforward
know.
question.
I know.
What's the register quality in the middle?
It was more of a mix as I was coming in, especially towards the bottom of the staff.
Okay.
But
And
still,
what would you say the vowel sounds were? Are they brighter or darker? Or they move around? What are they doing?
they moved around a little bit. So again, way up higher, they were brighter. And then as I came back down towards the middle, they were a little warmer.
Okay. And how does that relate to volume?
I think there was a mix of volume. So the higher stuff was still louder than, say, the stuff at the very bottom of the staff. But when the melody towards the bottom of the staff asked for more volume, I think I used a chestier mix than a headier mix.
Okay. Okay, so I'm pressing you, not that there was anything wrong with the information you gave me to start with, but I'm pressing you from a functional standpoint to be able to define it both ways, especially if you're going to teach, because you can't
Yes.
ask a student, could you make that more sparkly, please? They're going to look at you like, how do I do that? So whichever way, if you're a visual person, that's okay, that's good. But then how can you translate that visual into what we know of function? And I'm not saying that my way of teaching you about function is the only way you could go, but I try to keep it based on these 5 components, just said mixed bright files and dark files, because at least we can start to agree on something that is similar in most of us. So, and then there's a relationship between the register quality, the vowel sound quality, and the volume. So like when you said, when I came down low and I had to get, a little bit more energy, I had to go to chest in order to get more out of the sound, because otherwise it wouldn't work, right? So that's a really important thing for you to recognize, that in the quality of color that you were talking about, where it got a little bit richer and fuller, it also got a little chestier and maybe a little darker. Okay. And then you said something about the subconscious emotions. So try to expound on that a little more. What does it mean to have subconscious emotions?
I think it's that I've released control over micromanaging them, thinking that, oh, this is a sad part of the poetry, I should feel sad. So instead of going towards and attempting to execute the emotion, that I utilize all the other aspects and allow the emotion.
Okay. That's clearer than to say come subconscious.
Yeah.
Again, for teaching purposes, if you were to say to a student, well, just let the feelings be subconscious, they would probably wonder what that meant. But if you said, don't worry too much about it, just let yourself feel the music however you do, it might still be hard for the student, but at least it's a little bit more straightforward as an instruction. Yeah? Okay, that's good. Now, one more thing I want to point out to the participants and to you as well. When I asked you to go outside your frame of reference, your eyes very clearly went up and to the left and then up and to the right, and you have these gorgeous, big, beautiful eyes, and so we could really see a lot of white. Yeah, exactly. In neurolinguistic programming, which may or may not be a valid thing, they say that when you're accessing the brain, and they had a whole chart which I don't remember, but like up and to the right was auditory, and up and to the left was visual, and down to the right was emotional. I don't remember, but anyway, they say that the eye movement is that you're referencing some kind of a memory or an image, and your eye is a reflection of that. Now, if that's true, and I can't tell you if it is or isn't, you were a good example, because I could see you thinking, and as you were thinking, you were going, let me see. And that's important, because I watched somebody do a class, and they were insistent upon the student always had to look straight forward, straight out. And they would ask the student to change something, and the student would go like, okay, and then the teacher would fault that. You're not paying attention, just look straight ahead. I was like, well, but you asked for something the student's not used to doing, and they're searching in their programming to figure out how do they get that. So teachers, if you have a student who's looking somewhere, let them. They might need to think about how do they execute what you asked for if they're not used to it. And if you don't let them do that, how are they going to do it? And I remember thinking at the time that I wanted to stop the teacher and say, wait. let the student think. Who said thinking is wrong? And so, in your description just now, when you were saying you were letting the emotions, not overthinking things, ultimately that's a good thing. We want that. But sometimes, if you're trying to find a way to track your sound as function, it might not feel as flowing and as smooth and as sparkly as it does when you don't pay attention to the auditory stuff, because that's not the strongest way for you to listen or to feel. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. All right, Billy, I'll have time for one more.
All right, the next person with their hand up was Dr. Anita Kozan.
Oh,
Anita, hi. Well, we're finally going to get to talk, huh?
I know. This is great. Hi, Jeannie. Oh,
Okay.
I wrote down, I wrote a post-it when you were talking to Michelle. I think that I wrote down this says, and then at my own adding, yes, I am just as important as my students. Thank you, Michelle, so much for bringing that up.
Oh, you mean Marianne?
Marianne, I beg your
No.
pardon.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. So,
Okay, so did you do the homework? What did you get?
oh, I did. And I was thinking about, times when I have sung that I did a recording for the NPR Tiny Desk contest. So I thought about when I did that this past year, and also when I have performed some of my favorite songs and felt like I was really, really connected. And that's really what I talked about, that I feel incredibly present in the moment. And I feel alive with energy that's flowing out while at the same time I feel grounded. And I feel very happy, even when the music might be sad, but I feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And the other thing that I noticed was just that I feel like I have a sense of transparency. I mean, it feels weird to say like at a cellular level, but like energy is flowing through, even though I feel like I have good boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a feeling of energy flow. So that was how I described my emotions and sensations.
Okay. What about if you had to describe it functionally? Would you say you're singing more chesty or more heady or mixed, or is the sound clear or breathy? How would you put a label on it from a sound place?
From the sound place, I said that I felt that it was clear, very fluid in terms of going from note to note, on pitch, open, relaxed, and in terms of, because when you and Marianne were talking, I thought, okay, it was, my voice was more chest mix. I think I tend to sing with a fair amount of breath, but definitely more in the chest register. And then as I go up, it's more mixy. But I try to still keep it, I try to really keep my articulation good, to keep it clear in terms of understanding.
Okay, so you're talking about clear in terms of pronunciation, kind of clear.
Mm-hmm.
Tone-wise, it's slightly breathy?
Yes.
Okay. Because we could use clear either way. It's the same with articulation. We can talk about articulating the words,
Mm-hmm.
but we can also talk about the articulation of the sound in the throat, to
Mm-hmm.
go, ah, well, that's an articulation of pitch. So those words are funny because they can mean more than one thing.
And I would say both. I have a sense of both, that my voice sounds clear to me. That even, whether I'm pure chest or mixing or much more in a head voice quality, that the tone, I guess, sounds clear when I'm at
now. If you are, suppose you're working with one of your speech clients.
Mm-hmm.
Anita is a speech pathologist, and we've been good friends for 25 plus years. When you're working with a client, a patient, how much of that do you use when you listen to them?
Well, I suppose it depends who the client is, but sometimes I can take things for granted, like their pitch control. Some clients I can't, but I am looking for relaxation in terms of what they're doing with their body as they're singing, and with some clients, I mean, I work more with transgender clients than with cis clients, and so I might be working on how to bridge uh, from a chest voice, adding breath to it in order to go up, or starting in the higher notes that's more breathy, and seeing if they can come down and carry some of that breath down so that they're not, having problems. To start working on smoothing out through the break.
Okay. Okay, because one of the reasons I'm asking is, generally speaking, and I mean, I've learned this as much from you as I have from other people, from anybody else, that we don't generally speak in head register. That's not kind of the normal mode. That's why Dr. Holdeen called it modal, because it was the mode of talking. And so in my work with transgender singers, I spend a lot of time trying to configure the registration that would work for them individually. And I find that that's a very valuable tool. And I don't always equate that with breathy. Right? So I'm trying to find out if we're using that the same way, like in concept wise. Does higher breathy equate to head register?
I'd have to hear it. No, but right. I would say that I help people, well, first of all, bring down their volume, voice
Right.
volume, which
Right.
is going to help the, stop masking the breathiness of you can hear the breath better in the voice, but in a healthy way. I'm not talking about,
Right.
that kind of voice at all.
Right.
But I do think the whole thing of searching for the voice that is that feels integral to the person, that feels
Right.
consistent with them, it can vary a lot in how much nasality, how much breathiness, and it has that seems to, for one person, a more talking to them about having a breathier voice can really be the turns on the light for them.
Right.
And for other people, I mean, I might go from breathiness to, okay, now we're going to try, something, something with a more nasal sound to it, and that ends up being the voice that,
Right.
for them, it feels right for them for their speaking voice.
Okay,
And
that's
yes,
really, yeah, and that's really important for people to understand. So there's two ways to go here, which is Dr. Kozan is explaining using these tools to help find the quality and the tone that seems to fit the person uniquely, each person differently. And the other way is a little bit my way more, which is do the functional exercises, and they will allow that which is the authentic sound in the person to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have no head register, and you've never used head register, and you're not familiar with head register, but you spend enough time singing in it, or even speaking with it over time, you may discover that the voice you always thought was your own, regardless of whether you are cisgender or transgender, isn't the voice that actually your instrument wants to have.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two pathways to the same thing, to the place that the person's experience is kind of like what Anita said. It feels open, but not in a scary, vulnerable way. It feels flowing, but it has boundaries. I mean, those are all descriptions of things that would make me feel like, yeah, great. The somatic voice work coming a lot out of classical singing is that the sound itself has value as an exercise, and over time contributes to an experience where the person is going, oh, I never made that sound before. And that's not possible until you do the exercises. So that's why I was asking you, like, which way do you go? And I know you well enough to know, but I wanted that for the benefit of everybody else. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
We should talk this week. I know we keep trying.
I know it. I would love to.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all three of our participants for their wonderful feedback. I hope that those of you that didn't do this exercise do it on yourself, and also to listen to other people. And then make yourself answer the question in whatever way you answer it. And again, there's no wrong answer. But then notice that and then see, okay, how can I describe the sound as sound? And then in a somatic voice work way, how can I describe it as pitch, vowel, volume? And then in the vowel sound, chest, head, mix, bright vowels, dark vowels, generally speaking. Because knowing that allows you functionally to enter into the process as objectively as possible, but also with a map. And sometimes in working with people who don't like chest or they don't like head, it can feel like, you're forcing the person to make a sound they don't want to make. But as an expert, if you come to, let's say a dietitian, and the dietitian says, well, we need you to eat a healthy diet with this, and this, and you want to lose weight and so forth, so you need to eat this way, and you need to exercise this way, and then you'll find that over time your body gets better. If the person says, but I don't want to eat grapefruits for breakfast, you might be able to come up with some alternatives, but at some point, the bottom line is either you're going to change your dietary philosophy, or you're not. So sometimes explaining to people that the point of doing a functional exercise is to do the functional exercise. It is in itself a goal or a destination. So that when they return to a sound that's more familiar, it actually won't be the same sound. Okay? And this is again, like if you, both Anita and I are doing physical therapy because we both had our parts replaced. And we're having to try to re-educate the new parts to go along with the old parts. And if you don't do those exercises, then you don't get the response you need to at the long run, so that we can both of us walk better. So I want to keep coming back to function for its own sake, and this is separate from saying to the person, oh, that's a beautiful sound, or that's a warm sound, or I love that sound, or the person saying to you, oh, I feel so good here and I love this sound. All of that counts as well, but they're not substitutes for each other. You have to keep them clear in your mind. And because speech does not generally ask for head register, this is an area where there is some element of underdevelopment. And the people who have an advantage there are the ones who've gone and had classical training that was good classical training, where they developed the whole instrument. Not classical training where they only sang in head register, because that's not helpful either. Okay? Now, let's go to our vocalists. They have been asked to prepare a very short segment of any kind of song they wanted. And they know ahead of time that we're going to do the same thing with them, which is we're going to talk about what did we just hear. And so this is separate from, it might be the best rendition of that short piece of music that you've ever heard in your whole life. Good. Don't care. Or you might think, oh boy, that's a terrible way to sing that song. Okay. Don't care. All we're going to look at is how do we describe what we hear and maybe also what we see. And I know that if I had you individually here in the room and I went from person to person, everybody would give me a different answer. Well, that's all right. But from a functional standpoint, they shouldn't be vastly different unless you're still new to listening this way. I mean, I don't expect you to tell me that somebody's singing in head register when they're singing in chest, or that they're singing a dark close-up back sound when the sound is all forward in their nose. I would expect us to agree in a general way, at least to those components, and that we would be able to hear the difference between breathy and clear. Okay? Now, I don't have an order. Billy, do you have an order?
We have no particular order, but we can start with Noah.
Okay. Good.
All right, Noah, I'm going to unmute you.
Great.
Okay. Now, Noah,
Hi.
introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are and where you are and what you sing.
Yes, my name is Noah. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. Until COVID, I was floating around the world on cruise ships singing piano bar, like massive vocal load. And now I'm home on land teaching and doing some contract vocal work, more
Good.
choral, small groups.
Yeah. Now, I remember in July that we worked on trying to get you to lighten up a little bit
Yeah.
so you had a little more stamina. How were you doing with that?
I'm doing, my vocal load now is like went from crazy to pretty much nothing. I have a
Yeah.
big new holiday gig coming up where I'm going to be singing tenor in a small group on vocal jazz caroling stuff every day for the whole season. So I'm
Okay.
learning all that music and kind of dealing with the same struggles with how can I sing this tenor stuff where it won't tire me out, but it doesn't sound like a boring mix the whole time.
Okay. Well, my advice to you still stands. Vocalize a lot in head register.
Mm-hmm.
Up and down, back and forth, all kinds of vowels, all kinds of everything before you go into the pop sound. Okay? Now, what are you going to sing today?
Today I'm going to sing from Wild Party, I'll Be Here.
Okay.
When you fail, I will soothe you. No more harm, no more fear. On the coldest climb, till the end of time, I'll be here. I'll be here. I'll be standing by, trying to comfort, hoping I am enough. I'll be flying high, dragging myself into happiness. I've never known a life I thought I never owned. Maybe I've been dreaming, and this moment isn't real. How else can I explain this power that I feel?
Nice. Okay, now before you and I have anything to say, I want 3 people to raise their hands and tell me what you heard or what you saw. And I'm asking you now for function. So describe it as best you can in words.
All right, Michelle Thomas, I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, can you hear me?
You're a little quiet, Michelle.
Hold on just a second. Are you able to hear me now?
That's
That's
better,
better.
yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi there, Jeannie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, so what did you hear when Noah was singing?
I believe that I did hear, I think that I heard like a mix that was definitely, chest, but somewhat like headier, like, not like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing a great job already, but
It's okay.
but at places like I felt like I heard a very clear in spots like a clear chest registration, but then oftentimes around some of the runs and the riffs and everything, I felt like I heard kind of a lightening up, kind of bringing in some head registration into that chestier mix, and it's just depending on when he kind of put the pedal down on it and when he kind of came up off of it. And maybe possibly just a little, I don't know whether to call it constriction, but just a little bit of just effort kind of moving around from everywhere he was going
Okay.
in the melody.
Okay. What about the vowels?
I don't know if I'm going to have a very good answer for that. They sounded, or at least the impression it hit me with was somewhat rounded in places. Again, it was hard to know just consistently all the way through what they were. I did understand what he was saying for most of the time, but there wasn't a sharpness. Again, I felt like there was a kind of a headiness or a roundness to it
Okay.
somehow, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Now, what's important about what you're doing here for everybody else is how hard it is to nail this down in any kind of concrete way. I mean, we're trying to be, objective, and we're not talking about style, or we're talking about do we like his voice or anything. How do we describe this to ourselves? Because if you're going to work with somebody, and prior to COVID, he was singing multiple hours at a time every day. How do you help somebody who basically sounds good? I mean, doesn't sound in any way objectionable, yet they have a functional problem. So the first issue for us as teachers is what you just showed us. How do you nail down to describe it to yourself in the most objective way possible, right? So because the sound was moving around from chest to head, or chesty mix to heady mix, and the vowels were shifting around because of the way the style takes them, it's very difficult to be concrete. But you actually did a pretty good job. I mean, you were describing it in a way that at least I understood. And so you're enough in the ballpark that I was knowing that you were trying to figure out functionally what he did and how that hit you. And I get the question all the time, well, how is it that women are teaching men and men are teaching women? Well, because his voice is on the high side, it's kind of like working with an alto, functionally. So if you can, imagine yourself making the sound that he's making, what would you have to do to make that sound?
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's going to give you another way to inform yourself about how did you hear what you heard. Now, subjectively, assuming Noah decided he was going to come and take some lessons with you, what would you start with? What would you work on? How would you make some suggestions for him in terms of his stamina, or maybe his ability to handle more singing?
Well, one of the first things I would want to explore is to not hear him in mix, but to actually isolate his registration so that I can hear. I could explore what his chest register actually is, and hear it enough times, using range and using just different vowel sounds to see how balanced it is. And the same thing in his head register, how free and flexible and agile it is, and how far it's able to go. And then come back to the middle to see how he incorporates the two. If I'm able to find it on either side, I'd like to see how he incorporates both, and then check out the actual range of the song and what he's doing, like where he's singing this, where it goes in his voice, to see if we can figure out some strategies about like where he may land, where he may try to feel that landscape of that melody. And
Great.
what might work best for him in the performance.
Right. That's wonderful, because then you would be actually researching his function, and he would be researching it with you, and then determining, my chest register today, not so hot, especially since I'm hardly singing now and I was singing a lot. Those are the kinds of explorations that you can do that are useful. And you're not trying to get to an improvement on the first exercise. You're just evaluating. So that's a really good example of a function. So, pat yourself on the head. You did great. As the first shot here. It was brave of you. So thank you for that. And now I want to try to see if we get feedback from another person, a different person.
All right, Jason Burrow, you're up.
Okay, Jason.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So what would you say as you were listening to Noah from a functional standpoint?
I would say a lot of the same things, actually. So it's
Okay.
unfair, or maybe it's great. I just read everything you said down. The funny part, and I had this in my homework as well, is that when I start to take notes and listen, I'm like, oh, okay, I heard chesty mix. And I'm like, oh, but then I heard heady mix. And I heard dark. Oh, but then I heard bright. And I start to take notes of both things, which is, I think, a good thing because, good singers are not going to leave you in one place. We're going to take you everywhere. We're going to do all these things. So then I'm like, okay, but Jason, zoom out. What do you mostly hear? What are you honing in on? And I think for registration-wise, I mostly hear it in a chestier place. When it went up towards, higher break places, it sometimes got lighter in a headier mix, and then when you wanted to, it stayed a little chestier mix up there, a little beltier. I heard mostly the vowels being now I'm second guessing. I heard them mostly being a nice, bright, speaky place for this, which is right for the style, even though I'm not supposed to think like that. I'm mostly a bright place, but then they also went darker sometimes for effect, for color, for a difference. What else did I write down? I wrote down that the sound, the tone was clear, but then sometimes had a nice, would have like a nice breathy moment. Some of the riffs and runs, we back off a little bit sometimes for those and let them kind of ease through a little breathier, which was what I heard. Variations in volume. Yeah, that's mostly what I heard.
Okay, that's good. That's a really nice functional description. And, speaking is part of function, so that's an okay comment. It just so happens I didn't know what Noah was going to sing, but this piece does move around a lot, especially in this pitch range and the way he's doing it appropriately, but then it's harder to nail it down. I mean, if it's somebody's doing a whole belt thing, and then that we know what that is. But most of this music that we sing is kind of like this. It's a little here and a little there, and as you said, a good singer isn't going to just make one sound. Your overall thing is you kind of have to force yourself from the standpoint of teaching. It's like, well, if I have to choose chest or head, is it more chest mix or head mix? I'm going to pick one. Yeah. And then, maybe you do what Michelle says, you test out that hypothesis. Okay, let's see. Maybe it's not as chesty as I think, or maybe it's not as heady as I think. So you do the exercises functionally to find out if your hypothesis is correct. And then from that, you may come up with information to say, I know why he's having some stamina problems, because the sound just isn't strong enough in that bright mix. See, and then you have really a goal to go to. So you do your nya-nyas and your tongue out. But from the evaluation standpoint, what you did was great. You were listening from a functional standpoint. So that was good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
One more person.
All right, Andrea, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello. So I'm going to call myself out here. One of the things that I noticed about Noah, I think I remember you from the last time you worked with Jeannie. I remember your background, remember your face, and remember your voice. And where you sang today was much lighter than the first time before you had worked with Jeannie. So that was like note number one for me. I thought you started at a really nice gentle chest mix. You went up to head mix. It was beautiful. The thing that I wrote, and this is where I'm calling myself out, was I was like, oh, and then the runs go into a little bit more chest, and sometimes they're a little bit more clear and speech-like. And as I was writing that, I wrote speech-like, and then I wrote no, because when you were speaking, before you sang your song, it was a much lighter mix. It was very gentle, and sometimes we do this when we're close to our microphone, and I know I do. So I thought to myself, okay, maybe that's not where he speaks, but that might be a place that I would go to kind of work on there. And then Jeannie mentioned bright mix as well too. So like Jason, I heard, and like Michelle too. We heard the gamut of bright and dark and all that kind of thing, but I'm calling myself out on the speech-like thing because I do the same thing with myself in my own listening, where I'm like, oh, I'm definitely chest heavy here, and then I might go back and listen and be like, well, that sounds more like a 50-50, but I experienced it as chestier than how it sounds back to me when I hear myself singing back. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting that I initially heard the same thing I hear in myself and then question it again like I do in myself. So yeah.
Well, but that's part of the process, is to go back and forth. This is what I experience when I'm singing, which is why I had you listen to yourselves first. And oh, now I hear that in somebody else. Oh, I do that. I do that too. Oh, okay, wait. And do I do that? Or maybe I don't do that. That whole process is it continuing to say to yourself, who am I? How do I sing? Where are my strengths and weaknesses? And then how do I experience that when I'm making the sound? And then how does that relate to what's coming to me through my ears and my eyes in someone else? And this is important to me because, of course, I spent my whole life taking singing lessons from the time I was 14. And everybody was always telling me how I felt. Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. And my experience was, no, I'm not. And I was taught to be very respectful of authority back in the 50s. So I didn't question. I just went, okay. And then I was told what I was supposed to feel, except I wasn't feeling that. And nobody ever asked me, what do you feel? And I knew myself when I was singing beautifully and well and having fun and having a good time what I was doing. I had a sense of it, but that was very much invalidated by the teaching process. So in somatic voice work, I want actually that dialogue that Andrea just talked about. She's saying, okay, well, this is what I think, and then I listen to myself and I hear it differently. Right? So that's something we have to deal with, because if you make a recording, it's not going to sound the same way as it does when you're singing it in your head, but you have to be able to calibrate how it sounds to you while you do it. And the listening after the fact is nice, but that doesn't give you the information that you have to have while you're in it. So that actually was a very good evaluation, Andrea. It was nice. All right, now I'm going to go back to Noah, and I want to know what Noah thought when he was singing.
That was really interesting and helpful to hear all of that. That what you heard of me doing that is a way brighter version of what it used to be. That's me, like brighten. Because I'm just really trying to find, I used to feel like I had two options of like this really darkened, soulful pop thing, which I loved to sing that way, but was not able to reconcile that with the mixy jazz, and so I'm working on trying to bridge that and that. So nothing was wrong that I heard. I agreed with everything.
Good. Now, in terms of your stamina, I think I said this in July, the best way to have stamina, to keep using your voice a lot, is to stay as heady as you can without sounding stupid.
Right.
So you
How do I
always
make
have
it
to,
not sound stupid?
Yeah, well, this is where somebody else's ears are necessary, because you may feel like, I had this discussion with Jason Barrow. He said, but this isn't real singing. I said, yeah, it is. But if you are acclimatized to doing a certain thing, and then you stop doing that, and the feedback inside is less, because it will be less if it's lighter, then you feel like your sound went away, it's not real, it's not valid, it doesn't sound okay. Except out here, especially if we don't know what your voice is like, it sounds fine. And if you have a choice between singing the one that your brain likes and singing the one that your throat likes, your throat has to be the winner. So you always have to calibrate the whole thing, all the songs, to the place where the instrument stays in balance enough so that it's not tired. So my observation about what you just did today, as opposed to what you did in July, was that I feel like there's a dichotomy between your body and your throat. Okay? Now,
I'm like 5'7" and 120 pounds for those of you who only see me from the side.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean. Your physical self seems too relaxed. Okay? Now, we're all told all the time, relaxed is better. Do relaxed. Especially for stamina, what you need is efficient. You need energetic, not relaxed. Relaxed in the sense of, oh, I'm going to be relaxed. Okay. I'm going to teach you from a very relaxed place. You know, you go, what's the matter with her? Relaxed has to mean poised and ready to respond. So, if I'm singing like this, and that's all I want to do to be relaxed, and then I do that, and I try to make that louder, and I try to take it higher, I'm going to pay a price for that. I'm going to wear out. Okay? So this is where sound for sound's sake has to be the determining factor.
May I ask, is that because what I was perceiving as relax, relax, relax was maybe encouraging some over-darkening or constriction?
Yeah.
Because of...
Yeah. I mean, now you have a big light bulb over your head. Yes. Yes. That's it. You're aha. They're not the same. So when you if you want to think about being relaxed, change the word to being functional, being efficient, being comfortable, being responsive, being bouncy and alive. Because all of those things fall under the category of relaxed. Mm-hmm. Okay? But as a professional singer who's putting a lot of demands on his throat, you cannot afford to sing like a wet noodle.
Right.
Okay? Even if you have the mic and you want to sing breathy for the effect of it, that's okay. But then you can't extend that into I'm going to sing everything else that way. Okay? And then that would mean that your body would be a little more involved in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But I have to go on. I have other people. Thank you so much for being willing to be a guinea pig.
Thank you.
Everybody, virtual applause. Yay! All right, Billy, who's singing for us next?
Suzanne Douglas.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Billy.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hey, Jeannie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I
Okay.
taught a little bit today.
All right. You want to tell people just a little bit about you so they
No.
know who you are? No? Okay, well, I'll just say Suzanne is a very experienced performer, actress, singer, dancer. She's done many, many things in her life, and she's now a teacher, too. And so what are you going to sing for us?
I'm going to sing Jimmy Van Heusen standard, jazz standard.
Okay.
It could happen to you.
All right. Oh, I like that. That's one of my favorites.
Like a dreams uptight, it could happen to you. Someone drops a slide down your tango, deep behind the screen. Rolling church bells ring, it could happen to you.
except your music drowned you out.
Oh, sorry.
So it was way more music than you. Billy, can you tell
Yeah.
her how to fix that?
I think that it was just closer to the microphone, so I think
It
if we
was.
just turn the music down like 20%, it'll probably be a little bit better.
Yeah, sing like the first few measures and let's see how that is because it covered you up too much.
Okay. Is that better?
I think so. Let's see.
Hide your heart from sight.
That's good. Go ahead. Keep going.
Lock your dreams uptight. It could happen to you. Don't count stars or you might stumble. Someone drops a sigh and down you tumble. Keep an eye on spring. Run when church bells ring. It could happen to you. All I did was wonder how your arms would be, and then it happened to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, now participants, with your ears, I need some volunteers to describe what you heard when Suzanne was singing. So put yourself in the hand raising place, and Billy will allow you to say what you heard or saw.
Yeah, so click participants and then raise hand. All right, Wesley, I'm gonna unmute you.
First of all, it was beautiful. It sounded great. I heard light chest mix with some breathy quality and dark vowels.
Okay. Anything
There
about
was some
volume?
head as pretty low on the volume. Headier as it went higher. It all
Okay,
sounded
but headier is not volume. What's volume?
volume's breath pressure,
Yeah, but like, how do we talk about that?
louder, soft.
Right. So,
So it all sounded pretty
where was
soft.
she mostly?
Mainly pretty soft, like
Right.
soft to medium.
Okay, good. All right, cool. So mostly light chest mix, warm vowels, mostly soft. Any other considerations?
And kind of a breathy quality.
A little bit of breathing. Okay, good. So that's definitely a functional description. And we'll assume that if you were going to work with Suzanne or somebody like Suzanne, that those would be your investigation. You'd start with your investigation there. Like,
Right.
how much head does she have, and can she sing this headier? Maybe if she took it up a step, it would be headier. These are the kinds of things that when you're getting to know somebody and you haven't worked with them before, you want to poke around and see. And then as you get to know that, then you can choose more exploratory exercises to try and see, have her go back and see how that feels. So that was good. Now I'm going to go on to the next listener. Somebody else wants to give us an evaluation of what they heard.
Yeah, Michelle Rosen.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Well, and Wesley pretty much covered what I was going to
That's
say.
fine. You can say the same thing again. It's all right.
Yeah, I heard very light mix, a lot of head in the, I would say chest dominant, but very heady in that chest dominant place, a little breathy. Looked like very easy, sounded and looked very comfortable for her.
Mm-hmm.
And softish volume, beautiful sound. That's basically it. And if I were going to work with her, I would, as you say, Jeannie, I would want to know, well, what else can you do?
Right.
Because that's already kind of fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we make that maybe have more variety?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what, I'd have to hear her sing a lot more,
Of
other
course.
songs and all that stuff.
Of course, yeah. I mean, this is to just help people who are not used to listening for function to get an idea of what we're talking about. So far, our descriptors today, our describers today are doing a great job of evaluating the sound for the sake of the sound, understanding that there would be additional work to do with actually in this case Suzanne's cooperation. Suzanne, let's see if you can get more heady here and let's do these exercises a little bit, blah blah blah. Great. Okay, one more person.
There's not another person, but I know we have 3 more singers, so maybe...
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go on to the next singer.
Thank you, Suzanne. Beautiful singing. Okay, so let's go to Joe and Jean.
Okay.
We have a mother
Bye.
singer duo.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to pull age on my son and go first.
All right. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Are you going to sing first?
I am. And
Okay.
just as a little background, I retired and decided to kind of pursue my voice a bit because it's something I always wanted to do and didn't have much time, especially after Joe was born. I had to quit the choir at that point, and so I hadn't sung really for 26 years. And now I've been working with Michelle for a little under 2 years, trying to see what my voice can do. Even though I'm older now, it's been surprising for me.
Good. All right. Now, Billy, I'm having a little trouble hearing her when she's talking.
Yeah, Joe, it's a little bit quieter than when we sound checked. Is there a way to just go into your audio settings? So bottom left next to the mute button, there's that arrow. Click on the arrow, and then audio settings, and then just drag the input volume all the way up to the top.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
That's
better.
a little bit better, yeah.
Okay. So, what are you going to sing, Jean?
I'm singing Send in the Clowns.
Oh, okay. Great.
I'm going to play. Joe is playing for me.
Oh, okay. Live music. That's cool.
Isn't it rich? Are we up here? Here at last on the ground, you in midair. Send in the clowns. Isn't it bliss? Don't you approve? One who keeps tearing around, one who can't move. Where are the clowns? Send in the clowns. Just when I'd stopped opening doors, finally knowing the one that I wanted was yours, making my entrance again with my usual flair. Sure of my lines, no one is there.
Yay! Yeah, scary. I know. Okay. So before I say anything, we want to have other people do some sharing of what they heard.
Great. So first is Cheryl. And
Okay.
Cheryl, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, sorry. Cheryl, your hand just went down. I'm just going to unmute you this way. Here we go. All right. There we go. Oh, no, Cheryl. Oh, there we go.
You hear me?
Now we can, yes.
There you go. Okay. Beautiful work. I love the song. From what I hear, I like the when you changed your volume, and you were very dramatic in some places. You were very intense in some places, and you pulled back. You were very dramatic, and I really, I think that was very appropriate for the song. And I also liked your vibrato was very appropriate, especially at the very end of the phrases. Some of the vowels, I would say like the ow. I would think if I was your teacher, would try to smooth it out, help you smooth out the ow a little bit more. Um, I did like your phrasing. I think that that you have a beautiful voice. Don't discount yourself because you're older. So am I. It's never too late. Never.
Okay. Okay. Good, Cheryl. By the way, it's nice to see you. It's been a long time, huh?
Oh, you remember me?
Of course. Of course I do. From
It's good to
Brooklyn
see you.
Youth, from Brooklyn Youth Chorus.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
I don't remember what I did 5 minutes ago, but I remember people that sing and teach. They're in my head. Okay, so now you gave a good evaluation, and I'm going to ask you to go in the direction of mostly, like, what would you say you heard in terms of her registration? How would you describe it that way?
Mostly chest voice.
Mm-hmm.
There were some points where she would use her head,
Mm-hmm.
but it was mostly chest voice, almost like it almost would remind me of like a Broadway style
Okay, so
that I
that
would hear.
so that's important to make as an awareness thing that yeah, it's mostly chest here,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in a good way a chest, but it was not a heady sound for
No.
for the most part.
No.
And then all the other stuff that you observed, that was very nice. Let's see what other people have to say. Somebody else going to give an evaluation here for Jean?
All right. So Denise, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I had the function that I heard was chest dominant, like Cheryl said, medium loud for the volume, warm vowels for the most part, and clear tone. I would say it definitely wasn't breathy. It might have been a little bit on the brassier side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yeah, maybe that was what Cheryl described as being more Broadway sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice, though. Those are really good evaluations. Is there anybody else, Billy?
Yes. The next hand is Rick Ryder. Rick, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, Rick.
Start your video as well. All right, Rick. Maybe Rick will do the next person.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
There he is.
Sorry. Start my video.
Hi there.
Hey everybody. That was very honest and very touching. First of all, I was very moved by that, and that's why I put my hand up, because I wanted to at least say that to you. It was functionally speaking, it was very chest dominant and very speech-like, which I think added to its authenticity, because you sounded like you spoke when you were describing. I wish I could find. Oh, there you are. I can speak to you. There we go. And it stayed in your chest voice, I think, comfortably, and depending on how much volume you were using, it maybe mixed a little or lightened up into a lighter chest. And based on what you were seeing, you had a really strong connection to the lyric, and so when you were adding volume, it stayed primarily in chest and didn't really mix so much, which was incredibly appropriate. It seemed very relaxed and very easy for you, so I'm going to guess, I'm going to surmise that what I didn't see below the screen was some fairly calm action in your body in regard to breath. I saw perhaps when you were layering on some volume higher in your chest voice that there was a little tightness here, and that may just be because that's what your voice does. I don't know your voice well enough. Since we're diving into this functionally and everything that we're hearing and seeing. And something was discussed about vowels. Jeannie talks about the organization of vowels, which I loved. And so there were occasionally some vowel sounds that jumped out at me that I think could be modified and would not affect the speech-like quality that comes naturally to you and the lyric. in this song.
Okay.
I think I start making stuff up if I keep talking.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we all do that.
So Jean, what would you say? How
Well,
would you evaluate yourself?
definitely in chest. I mean, it's very comfortable for me. That range. You know, I've worked in head with Michelle a bit, quite a bit to try to expand my voice, and I think it's helped a lot. Overall, I can sing much more now without like the constriction and pain. Well, not pain, it was not discomfort. I noticed that. But I probably was a little nervous, so therefore the constriction. The vowels, I've worked with Michelle a lot. I know with my Brooklyn accent. He's always working with me on those, so I appreciate the advice and critique very much. This is new for me, so it's all a new world.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I think that your own evaluation of yourself was grounded in very good feedback. You sounded like you understood what you were doing well enough to describe it from a functional standpoint. And it was, as everybody said, it was very expressive. And so that's nice that you had a grasp of the function, plus also you were able to communicate the lyrics the way the lyrics need to go. So now I know where Joe gets his genes, his singing genes from. That's a good thing. So you keep working with Michelle. You're doing great. And, don't have this idea that you're old. Forget about that. Doubt. It's just a question of putting in that maintenance on those vocal muscles and those breathing muscles, and we're good. Thank you so much for volunteering to do this. It was very brave of you, but it was good. It was good.
And Jeannie, before we switch over to Joe, I realized that Suzanne didn't get an opportunity to chat about her experience of her own singing. So Suzanne,
right.
I'm going to unmute you, and then you can share with us.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for watching me not flake out.
All
I,
good.
of course, want to know what Suzanne thought of herself. Absolutely.
So the sound I was making was definitely mixed. I'm a little confused though. I wouldn't say that I have a breathy sound. I diverged from the melodic line to give a little bit more of a head mix. I didn't sing the song as it was intended because I did not want it to stay in one quality.
Right.
I've done a vocalise to this, which goes all over the place.
Right.
Because I like playing around with those types of variants. But I wanted to know, Jeannie, what is the difference between a breathy sound and the head register? Because both of the artists who referenced what they heard said that they heard a breathy sound.
Well, in most cases, when you go to head register, if nothing else changes, it does tend to be breathy because the vocal fold pressure is lighter. So there's just a lot more air. That's sort of what I was talking to Anita about. So lightness and breathiness can be related, but not necessarily the same. So I don't even know if this will come across in this particular circumstance, but if I say, oh, this is how I want to sing my head register, head register, that's very different than if I say, oh, here I am in head register, oh, here, oh, okay. So in the second one, I'm very deliberately clear. In the first one, I'm just letting air go out, which allows the sound to be lighter and takes me more to head. And this is like percentage-wise, Suzanne. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is really clear and 10 is super breathy, this might be a 4. It's not like what we hear is just breathiness. But if you tend to hear in your mind, all of us in our own minds, what clear is, light and clear and bright are real bugaboo words because some people associate head register with bright. Well, not necessarily. And some people associate it with a lighter sound, which goes breathy. Not necessarily. And any of those can be useful as long as you know where you are on that spectrum. So that if I were singing more like that, I would say that was light and breathy. Da do da do dee da da do da. Now my voice in general before the paresis was always very clear. So if I were to sing and stay clearer on purpose, it would sound more like that. And that's not a huge big difference. So in the end, it's really sort of up to you. And if you would describe it to yourself as being clear, and you know that that's what that means to you, that's fine. The only place it gets to be an issue is in a student. Because if the student equates head register with lighter registration, means lighter, and then also equates that with breathy, at some point you have to break up that triumvirate and say, yeah, now lighter but not breathier. Is that clear?
A little. It's still a little confusing to me, but I won't take up the time here to further indulge in that. But thank you.
Yeah. Registration responds to volume. So generally speaking, softer sounds want to go toward head because the vocal fold closure is different. But you can't generalize because, of course, it's possible to sing in chest register quietly. It's also possible to sing in head register very loud, and that's more likely to be clear. So the breathy factor, the clear factor, is related to registration and pitch, but they're not absolutes. Right? So in a sound where, if they were singing a piece of music where clarity was a requirement, like a legit music theater piece, you don't want breathy and legit singing. But if they're singing a jazz tune, really it's not that important. It's up to the artist. So as a teacher, you want to be able to hear that difference and to understand. We had this discussion in a way last week where we were trying to clarify what's the difference between bright and light. And the words are very bad. There is not a lot of help from the words. But they are the traditional words that have been around in vocal pedagogy, and they are unfortunately very vague. So I use light to mean registration, and bright to talk about a vowel sound quality, and clear to just be a clear sound. So you can sing a clear sound in chest, you can sing a clear sound in mix, you can sing a clear sound in head. And they may be loud or soft if the person is skilled enough. Okay? To be continued. Okay. Now, are we going to go, Billy, are we going to go to Joe now?
Yeah, so let's go to Joe. And so we've got Joe and Anna to get through, hopefully in the next 15 minutes, and then we'll get to the shorter Q&A today.
Okay.
I'll do it.
All right. So what are you singing, Joe?
I picked Wohin by Schubert.
Okay.
So, quick and easy.
Okay, so everybody that doesn't know Joe, Joe is in Brooklyn, and he's a classical singer and pianist and conductor and teacher and all kinds of wonderful, cool things. And this piece is a very famous classical art song in German.
And away we go. Ich hört ein Bächlein rauschen wohl aus dem Felsenquell, hinab zum Tale rauschen, so frisch und wunderhell. Ich weiß nicht, wie mir wurde, nicht wer den Rat mir gab. Ich musste auch hinunter mit meinem Wanderstab. Ich musste auch hinunter mit meinem Wanderstab. Hinunter und immer weiter und immer dem Bache nach. und immer frisch rauschte und immer der Bach und immer frisch rauschte und immer der Bach.
Okay. Well, that'll turn your ears around a little bit. All right, people. Who wants to share what they heard? Come on.
Thank you, Mom.
All right, Lisa, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello. I figured
Hi.
I could chime in, right? Another classical person. I've got to
Yeah,
say.
yes. I know, Lisa, that's a good idea, right?
That was beautiful. And this is such a good piece for showing like a lot of different things in the voice.
Right.
So I heard chest register, chest mix, obviously lighter as it went higher. I heard a lot of dynamic variation. I heard resonance. I hope I'm able to say that word.
Yes, you're allowed to say that.
Functionally, but
Classical music, you can say that.
right. I heard lots of different vowel colors, so soft and warm to brighter sounds, and then a lot of flexibility, which you showed going through the range.
Okay. Would you say that it was clear in terms of the words? Articulatory clear?
Uh-huh. Yes. Lots of good German consonants, right? And I got all the words. Yes.
Okay, great. Those are really nice observations. Thank you, Lisa.
You are welcome.
Is anybody else gonna say what they heard?
Yeah, we've got Elisa Hauser. I'm going to unmute you, Elisa.
Okay.
Hi, Jeannie. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be here. Sorry I was late. I heard pretty much, I would say the same things. I heard chest dominant, certainly chest mix. I would say overall I heard dark vowels. Very relaxed and free sound. I would say, as we were talking about clear, definitely everything was clear in terms of the sound. And I would say like mezzo forte volume for the most part. It was just beautiful, very relaxed and free. I would describe it as.
Okay, that's great. So Joe, what would you say about it from a functional place?
Functionally, I was very, very careful with dynamics in this one, because if I went one iota too much, it would have fell apart. But so registration-wise, I thought I was slightly headier than what I would originally like, but it lets me get chestier as I go down, headier as I go up. So I'm happy with it.
Okay. Well, I felt like, I haven't heard you sing since like last year.
Yeah.
So I thought that this was a really good balance to me and lighter than the last time I heard you.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like you were going across the middle, which was the sticky place, really, really well. And since this piece is that's a lot to say about that. And so I basically concur with your evaluation and with what Elisa and Liesl said, in that the evaluation from a functional standpoint made sense. And this is important for the teachers that are not used to listening to a male voice, and particularly a classical male voice. Joe is a tenor. And so tenors are always going to have some kind of a mix going, or they aren't going to be tenors. And then they have to configure the vowel sounds across those transitions so that they are aesthetically acceptable. They're not exactly the same kind of vowels that you sing if you're doing music theater, which is closer to a unmodified or spoken quality. But Joe didn't over darken. He didn't make the vowel sounds swallowed or heavy or closed up or kind of lugubrious. So when we say the vowel sounds are dark, it's just in comparison to the Broadway sound, which Joe can also do, which is a more hi, how you doing kind of sound, as opposed to hi, how you doing. Those are vowel sound changes. So I want to thank both of you very much for today. You were perfect. It was wonderful. It's nice to see you and hear you both. And now we have one more. We have Anna.
Yeah,
we
we
have
have Anna Knight.
Anna.
I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay, so
Hi,
hi,
Jeannie.
Anna.
How are you today?
I'm good. What are you gonna sing for us?
I'm gonna sing "Get Out and Stay Out" from 9 to 5 the musical.
Okay, cool.
I have no choice. I have to do it. Face the future. Walk into it. Now that I'm unfettered and unbound, get out and stay out. I finally had enough. Don't kiss me on your way out. It wouldn't move me much. You used me, abused me. You cheated and you lied. So get out and stay out. I'm taking back my life. My life.
All right. Now, what are those ears hearing? What are those eyeballs seeing? What's that evaluation? Somebody give me a sharing.
All right, Kate McGarry.
Kate. Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. I finally found my raise hand button, which I was trying to use before. So Anna, thank you. That was lovely. I was finding that to be heady belt at a heady when she was up in her highest range at a high volume and bright vowel sounds. Other times it was a belt, a chestier belt. So it was mixing. It felt to me like it was mixing, going from a mixy belt to more of a heady, high volume, high intensity, and again mostly bright vowels.
Okay. Would you consider that the high stuff was still a chest mix, or would you say it went to head mix?
No, it went to head mix.
All right. That's good. Okay. Somebody else want to give us evaluation?
All right, Andrea, you're up.
Hello.
Hi.
To quote Jeannie LeBetry, that ain't head up on top. That's chest mix up there. Yeah, bright vowels. She's got ease over sound, production. She's not working very hard for that.
Okay. Good. Anybody else?
That's it.
All right. So Anna, what do you think you were doing?
It was a blur. No, I'm just kidding. It definitely. I've been working on this with my instructor Jason, and I was also lucky enough. Hi, Rick, you're in here too. To work with him during the masterclass that Jeff just had on Saturday with this song.
Great.
And so something I observed about it was it did feel like it was switching into a head mix that I wasn't used to. It kind of happened that I knew I had it in me to sing that in my chest mix, and I don't know if it was fear or if it was just, I don't know, but I felt like it kind of flipped a couple times, and I was like, oh, that has not happened today, but we're going to go with it. Right. And so that was interesting, but staying grounded and not taking big gaspy breaths was something I was working on, and to make sure that I'm not like pouncing on some of those vowels.
Okay, good. Well, I think the first time you went up, it went to head, which is what Kate heard. But the second time it was more chesty, which is where it should have been. But maybe it just weren't warmed up enough, So it kind of like was in between in terms of the execution. It still didn't sound bad when it went to the headier place. I mean, it was acceptable as a sound, but it wasn't the sound that I'm sure you wanted to make. And then this song is a gut buster to do because it's got so much emotional energy. She's so mad. Mm-hmm. So it wants you to yell, but you didn't. You didn't yell. You sang it. And definitely it was very chesty, chesty belty, but not in a bad way. It was a good quality balance in those middle pitches. So you're doing good work. You're working in a good place. The vowel sounds are very wide and bright, and your mouth is open, but that's necessary in this sound. So this was a good example of coming at a song like this, and functionally from the way it's supposed to be, but you also looked like you were managing it quite well. So that's a good thing.
Yay!
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the people who sang and all the people who commented. That was brave of you. So everybody we're giving ourselves a round of applause, virtual applause. Yes. Okay. What was fun about that is we had like a little bit of everything, you know, we had all kinds of stuff. And I love it when that's the case. You know, we don't know what we're going to get. And that's the point. That's the whole idea of being a teacher is, you know, you don't know what's in front of you until you've been working with it for a while. But you're also learning very well to listen for the function as much as possible, as if nothing else mattered. Now, clearly that's not humanly possible. There's always going to be emotion. There's always going to be variability. There's always going to be all that stuff. But your job as a teacher is to try to filter all that other stuff out. Your job is to hone in, is, you know, how much chest, how much head, where am I on the pitch range here? What kind of vowels am I getting? How does a person look? Because if you don't have that, that's the bare bones of function. You're going to get really lost. You're going to go off and start saying, well, now your jaw is too tight, and let's work on the base of your tongue. And I mean, okay, yeah, but not when you first are starting. You don't go there first. You go to the function first. And then as you're working with the function and you get better at choosing an exercise, what am I going to do with that? So I also want to say again, this was a good example of how to listen to someone singing something. Maybe you knew these songs, maybe you never heard them before. Doesn't really matter from the functional standpoint. You still have to evaluate right now what's in front of you today. Then in a lesson, you're going to vocalize the person so they sing all the way through their range, up and down, heady and chesty, maybe a mix, brighter sounds, darker sounds, moderate volume most of the time, but maybe a little louder or a little softer depending upon how you're doing. Always with an eye to, is this body breathing? How are they standing? How connected are they to the sound when they use their breath? And then over time, as you get that, you might consistently notice every time I come down to the low notes, they kind of get soggy. Why is that? Or, oh, every time we go above D, the throat closes up, gets constricted. What's that? So then you will be able to say, let me go spend some time with that. And then, oh, maybe I should be working here on head. So you go down a little up below it and you go up a little above it in head. Or vice versa. You go down a little in chest and up a little bit in chest. With the idea that you're spending time, you're waiting for the bus, and you're letting the exercise have an effect. And I've been reading, I think I mentioned to you, this book called Mind Sight by a doctor, a psychiatrist named Daniel Siegel. It was written a number of years ago. And I'm getting a lot out of it because it talks about the brain, all the different parts of the brain, and how we have to process experience through the brain. And one of the things about singing and teaching singing is that to some extent it's not directly controllable. When, like now I'm speaking, I'm not vibrating my vocal cords. I'm not saying, oh, and these words I have to be on these notes. But when you sing, you have to pay attention to stuff that you don't have to pay attention to when you're speaking. And just having that come up to a level of awareness over which you have some control in a deliberate manner is a big deal. And it has to do, when we talk about the ear, obviously we're talking about the brain. We're talking about how we hear, what we hear, and then what do we do with that. So I'm hoping as we go on with function, I'd like to try to expand this and talk about why do we do this exercise, and why do we do it followed by that exercise, and how long do we spend on that before we go back to something else. As far as I'm concerned, that's the hardest thing to learn and the hardest thing to teach, because of the great variability, not only from person to person, but because the system as I'm teaching it to you is vast. This is not the 10 greatest tips for singing high notes to get on the voice. And it implies, when I'm telling you that this is an elite system for serious teachers, I ain't kidding. You got to really spend time with this, even though you can work with anybody from a child to a senior with chest head mix, bright vowels, dark vowels, posture and breathing. You could take that anywhere. That is the essence. And I want to get up and show you something, but just behind me. Hold on. I'm going to try to put this in front of the camera. Okay. Can you see that? Okay. So this is the Picasso drawing. This is the bull. This is the whole bull. A little less bull. A little less bull. A little less bull. A little less bull. And then there's like 6 lines of a bull. And that is, I got that when I was in Spain last year at the Picasso Museum. And I got it because when they had the Picasso exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York 25 or so years ago, I saw that in person. And I had a big, huge aha moment, which was, this is like singing. First, you have all that detail in that bowl, all those tiny details. And you could probably find this online if you look. But he's very complex here, that first guy. I guess it's this one. And then it goes through until you get down to that one that has just a few tiny lines, like 6 or 7 lines over here. And the whole bull is still there. The essence of the bull, now you don't look at that and wonder what it is. It looks like a bull. That was the genius that Picasso had. And that is our genius when we get so that we have just enough of the essence of singing so that it's all there and we have subtracted out everything that I'm teaching you. Everything that everybody's teaching you. And that kind of mastery comes only after you've done a lot of work. But it's worth it because the genius factor in all of us, and we do all have a genius factor, comes from that dedication to recommit, to listen again, and listen again, and listen again, and see, and try, and feel, and evaluate. And all that, the nastiness about, well, this is the right way to do it, and that's the only way to do it. We don't need that. We don't need that. That's not necessary. I'm very opinionated, as you well know, but I'm not so opinionated that I don't listen to somebody else, because sometimes you go, I never thought of that. And then everything else, like dominoes, changes. We just had a meeting of one of my singing teachers group over the weekend, and this is a very classical organization, very academic, classical, university-oriented. And I mentioned at the end that we were talking about being more inclusive. And I said, well, you know, I know people who are excellent, really experienced teachers of Indian classical singing and of Bulgarian singing and of the Native American songs. And they are serious teachers of singing Brazilian popular songs. They're not coming out of a Western classical mindset. Are we interested in taking a look at that as if that's also singing? And, you know, you have the proverbial pin drop, because that kind of going outside the box in the bigger sense has been my mode for being alive since I was an adult. That's what this is about, which is great. Now, I've talked all the way through our questions, but maybe I have time for one or two.
Yeah,
Billy,
so
what-
let's
what
just
we
do
got?
one or two, and then I'll carry the other ones over. So the 3 people for the first week, your questions will be carried over to next week because
Yeah, I
they're more general
apologize. We'll get 'em
questions.
in.
Can you tell us the difference between head belt and chest belt?
It's just a perceptual difference. There's just more closure and more pressure on the whole mechanism in the larynx and the vocal folds. It's not a huge big deal, but auditorily, one has a little more in it than the other.
Great. For a high belt song like Get Out and Stay Out, is it better to sing it in head mix belt for the long run of a show, or does it depend on the individual instrument?
You have to sing it in a way that you can sustain 8 shows a week. You can't decide, oh, I'm going to just belt my brains out here, because in 2 months you won't have a voice, let alone a job. So you always have to compromise to the least that you have to do to still do it. You sing to the extent that you can manage to sound like the sound that you want to have, and then you back out of it like the Picasso, and you see how much can you subtract out of it and still have that essence be there. So that's personal.
That's great. Well, Jeannie, tonight was really fabulous as always. So thank you so much to all of our singers, Jean, Joe, Suzanne, Noah, and Anna. It's been really great, and we look forward to picking this up next week.
Yeah, everybody, I may or may not send you homework. I'm not sure. But I would ask you to continue to ask yourself when you listen to singers or to yourself, what do you hear? How do you hear it? In what context do you hear it? What do you make of it once you figure that out? And what would you do with it after you have something to use? Because then that'll definitely keep you busy for at least a week. Thank you all so much. It's always wonderful. Thank you, Billy. And I hope you have a great week. See ya next week. Bye.